Just give,
हार्दिक से स्टार्ट करिए सर।
हेलो।
Yeah, good evening, Sir Vikram.
हाँ बोलो।
Actually, from Hardik.
हाँ
So just wanted to inform you that I blocked your calendar from this weekend, right? If you can check, okay?
नहीं नहीं, वही बता रहा हूँ, दिस वीकेंड में ब्लॉक किया है, लेकिन वही बता रहा हूँ कि यहाँ पे सडनली ब्लॉक किया है, वो कब हो गया पता नहीं चला, कब से हुआ।
Sir, you are on mute.
No, I'm not speaking. I think we were waiting for somebody to start, right? I was thinking that.
हार्दिक जी चालू कर दो आप, हार्दिक सर।
sure. Okay. So, Dr. Vikram, you are ready, right? I think you were on a call. Perfect. So we would start. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to host Dr. Vikram today. Uh, as the ICI motto says, right, that we are here, Esho Saptesho Jagrati, which always means that the people who are awake among the other people who are sleeping, right? And with that motto in mind, we take a great pleasure to host and invite our today's speaker, Dr. Vikram Pandya, in our Tech Age series, wherein we would be speaking about knowledge of management using generative AI. I would like to briefly introduce our today's esteemed speaker, Dr. Vikram. He is a director of FinTech at SP Jain School of Global Management and also heads research at FinTech-focused VC fund Verinium NextGen. He has authored several white papers, research reports, articles on FinTech domain, and he has an extensive experience in BFSI, consultancy and training domain. He has been a founder and director of Association for Emerging Technologies, which is a non-for-profit ecosystem initiative. And he's also associated as a mentor with several fintech startups across the globe. He has been a fintech ambassador for Maharashtra government's Uday fintech platform and part of advisory committee for Rajasthan and Karnataka state governments. He is one of the founding members of ICI's startup committee, and with overall experience of more than a decade that he has in contributions in financial and investor strategy, business intelligence, balance sheet management, business development and technology solutions, and various other domains. And he has been a visiting faculty at various prestigious global institutes in India and internationally. And it gives me immense pleasure to introduce and invite today's speaker, Dr. Pandya. Uh, 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 Thank you, sir, for taking out time out of your busy schedule. It's a great pleasure to host you, and would love to hear from you today. And I would request you to take the session and inform us about management of knowledge with generative AI. Thank you so much for giving out your time today.
Thanks, and good evening, everyone. We will start today's topic, and I would like to make sure that people, whoever is present right now, please make sure that you are as interactive as possible, because as I said, theoretical part I already shared with you. There is an ebook free available. I have given it to everyone. The idea in today's session is that we are going to discuss more practical nuances in terms of the knowledge management and how, with the generative AI coming up, how those things are changing. What are the things that you can really do with this new set of tools and techniques which are available, and what are the strategic considerations that everyone should be worried about? Because today, in the world of finance and technology, and let's say you are even in manufacturing, whatever industry you are in, knowledge is generated everywhere. Whether it is internal knowledge or you gather it from externally, you need to have some sort of representation. Today, people just store that in file. You have certain knowledge which is created through individual interaction. Somebody is leaving the company, then you have that handover happening. Again, those things are lost in the translation and transition. So we need to be aware about how to ensure that this entire knowledge management is properly done. So please, you can keep on asking your question in the chat window whenever you have, or in Q&A section, which is allowed. I will recommend you to ask in Q&A so that it becomes properly curated, and one by one I can answer as well. That is one. And whenever I ask question, please make sure that you are also participating so that I can make sure that you are interacting with me on this topic. If you are stuck with some concept, you want further clarification, please feel free to ask any questions. So let's start and begin with the today's topic. Now let's start with defining the knowledge, right? Knowledge itself, people always are not clear about what kind of knowledge you are talking about. So in the theory part, you have two types of knowledge, which is one is generated and properly written, documented, and another one is something which is commonly known in the company, but it is not properly documented as such. It is not explicitly mentioned, right? That some of the things are implicit. Now the things become that if you are not clear in terms of what kind of knowledge we are referring to, first of all, people always start with the wrong definition of knowledge. So let me ask you a simple question. What is the most critical set of activities that you do as an organization within your own company? You can just put that in chat window. I'm giving you 2 minutes to just think about that. Whatever knowledge you believe is the most critical knowledge for your own company, you can just put that in the chat window. That is fine. I will go through very quickly. And then we will take certain examples from what you are sharing, and then we will put that better in the right manner. Chaitanya is saying accounting standard. Guru Dutt is saying financial analysis. Look, I will tell you, when you want to ask question, put it in Q&A, otherwise in chat window. So financial analysis is a knowledge. I will say it is not as such knowledge, but what part of that can be knowledge, you will see. Filing, return and income accounting, good. Anand is saying client information, perfect. Sumit is saying objectives and ethics, good, okay. Whereas SOP policies, this is a standard one. I'm saying everyone will have this, right? Internal policies, you will have SOPs which are there, perfect. Consulting solution frameworks, interesting. Compliance is also, I'm sure everyone will have the compliances related knowledge base which you create and keep. What else? Come on, I want to see a few more items. Jinal, it was in the chat window. It was shared in the chat window already. Yes, it resides in mind, but that is this knowledge which is not documented, right? So we are saying about the documented knowledge. Special issues on specific audit, planning. Hardik, that book only which you said, thanks. Again, I will share one last time for everyone. You can see this is the book which is shared. It is visible to everyone now in the chat window. Please download that book. I think I have shared twice or thrice already. But any which ways, even if it is not with you, you will get it later. WRC will send it to you later. Good. So I can see people have shared multiple different ideas and areas where you require knowledge base. And the good part is that sometimes knowledge is not documented. We can convert that into documented knowledge. For example, this session which I am taking, interestingly, this session is not that way documented somewhere, but it is recorded, which means that if you use technology properly, this entire session that we are having can be documented automatically. And let me give you an example, right? So today you have tools like otter.ai. I will give you very quick examples, right? So otter.ai, for example, this is one such tool. And if let's say we are inviting this tool to the meeting, then it will automatically document the entire meeting that we are having, along with who attended, what we discussed about. And that meeting also becomes a knowledge base, because whatever meeting that we are having with our clients, with internal departments, knowledge also becomes part of that. And when you are transcribing it automatically and you are verifying it and storing it somewhere, that becomes knowledge base. Similar to that, when I'm discussing all these things with you, knowledge base should also keep in its own calculation that we do, right? In AI/ML, we will see how it does. But whenever it does that calculation of what are the related entities, so it should understand and file it automatically that, okay, this knowledge relates to knowledge base related topic, which means in future, if somebody is searching it, it should be easily available, accessible. Otherwise, what is the use of having and storing knowledge? Because if I store the entire world's knowledge, unless and until I can reuse it when I want it, it is useless for everyone. Don't you agree? End of the day, knowledge should be accessible and available whenever you want it. And knowledge should be relevant. I should not be searching for some part and I get 1 million rows of records or I get 2000 pages of PDF. No, it is not useful. It should be relevant whenever I want it and contextual, which means that whenever I'm searching for something, it should be related to what I'm doing. And if it can identify automatically, nothing like it. And that is where the concept of knowledge becomes very useful. Another example, let's say you are doing something. Everyone does some activity and those activities are not recorded. Today, you can record those activities and you can create knowledge base based on that. In your Windows, everyone has tool called Steps Recorder. I will just show it to you. Steps Recorder. You can see it is the inbuilt tool. You don't need to download anything. It is freely available. And if I start recording it, and now I do whatever I want, right? I can say, okay, knowledge graph. I can go here, new collection. I'm typing something, for example. Whatever I do, everything is getting recorded as a part of activity step recorder, which means that if I am doing some accounting entry, if I am sending some invoice or preparing some invoice, or I'm creating some vendor account, any activity that I do step by step will get recorded here. And you will be able to see that recording along with the screenshot. Step 1, user clicked on this. This is the screenshot of that. Step 2, and that's it. I have recorded only 2 steps. You can see this again becomes your knowledge. This is enterprise knowledge, which can be recorded for the things which you don't have documented. From the undocumented, you are converting that into documented activity. Any questions, anyone, up to this point in time? Because this is your basic building block. If you have any questions in this knowledge collection, then let me know. Because based on this, we are going to build this entire session step by step. So this is the first part. How can you collect the knowledge? Something that you already have is fine. But what about something that you don't have in writing? How to accumulate that knowledge is what we are looking at, right? And there are multiple different ways. And one of the ways can be, as I said, it can be AI transcribing it, or it can be something getting recorded. There are 2 questions. Okay. How to see step record? What do you mean by how to see? I'm saying you need to just click on your Windows icon and then you can search for step recorder. It should be available as a part of your Windows itself. There is nothing to download as such. Steps recorder is available in your Windows icon. You click search on step recorder, it is available. Then where it is stored, you can save it. You can save and save wherever you want it. It is in your hand, so it is fine. In fact, you can also edit it. Let me show it to you, right? As you can see, it is saved as a zip file, which means that if I save this, let's say test recording, and if I unzip that, so this test recording, I can unzip that. You can see it is stored as MHT file. I can simply unzip this. So here is that entire thing. And now I can open this with Word. I can go to WinWord as you normally do. Then I can select that file, open. And I can, as you will see, I can simply edit this entire thing. Once you have recorded step by step, you can put your comments, you can edit this in Word file, and you can save it again. So this becomes editable version for you. There is one more question from Bharat Patel. Can we use this step recorder at the time of using MS Teams meeting? Yes, you can. You can use it. It is independent of any application. It is Windows tool, which means that it can override everything. You can use it whenever you want it. Okay. Any other question, anyone? Okay. Whether this knowledge presentation shall not require pre-planned steps, instructions, and planning. Good question. This recording, typically, if you look at it, right? If you were to use it as it is, then you are right. Then you require that sort of planning, because otherwise your wrong steps are recorded, correct? And that is the reason I have shown you how to edit that step that you have done, right? So, C. Ratan Rathi, are you clear on this now? Why? You can start with whatever you want, but then later on you can edit it out. You can delete it, you can modify it. So that is always possible. Otherwise, what happens? Many a times, the moment you need to think through everything, you are stuck. You will say, no, I don't want to do it. I am scared whether I need to edit it later or not. But here you can edit it, which means that you don't need to worry. Any other question before we continue? Okay, great. So which means that at least by now, you should be very clear about how you will gather the knowledge. Knowledge is something, as I said, is everywhere, as you know, right? Even when you are just traveling somewhere, you will see 10 things and you will need to remember that. And typically, knowledge is always associative knowledge. Associative means that you relate to that knowledge with something. So when we are talking about knowledge, let's say you learn about this topic today, you will try to associate that with something that you are doing. Or you will learn about taxation, some new clause which has come, you will try to associate with whatever you already do, and then try to see how and where you will need to fit that knowledge. So because knowledge is associative, typically when the knowledge representation started, everyone started with the associative representation of the knowledge, what we call as a knowledge graph. Now this is the new concept for you. So I'm going to repeat it a couple of times and make it very clear for you all. Knowledge graph is something which is a relatively new topic, and people may not be aware about that. So let's understand what is a knowledge graph. Knowledge graph is nothing but showing knowledge related representation in a structured manner. Now, what is that structured manner? Let's consider a simple thing. Today, I am taking a session on knowledge representation and knowledge management in enterprise. So I am an entity. Entity means that somebody who is doing something, some action. The knowledge that I am giving you is a topic. So it is a property of the topic that we are having today. So property of the topic is knowledge management. Then whatever I'm teaching you is the, again, properties, what is the output of this activity. So that again becomes the node and you are learning it. I am delivering this session through WRC. So that knowledge should be somewhere. So that becomes intermediate step where I can show that WRC is the intermediary in my knowledge distribution. And this kind of a knowledge graph is then useful to just look at bird's eye view and tell that, okay, what happened during this session, right? This is kind of a knowledge graph you want where not only human being, but also computer can understand. So when we look at knowledge graph, you already have knowledge graph that everybody uses without knowing it. And typically you use that with Google. So let's understand how you use that. Let's say that we search for knowledge as a keyword. The moment you use knowledge as a keyword, you will see on the right-hand side, you have something available here. Now this area that you see is Google's representation. I will repeat, this area that you see is Google's representation of the knowledge graph for the word knowledge. If I type Reliance, same thing will happen. And this is the Google's representation of knowledge graph on Reliance. And as you can see, it is trying to bring all the relevant content and associate that content with the keyword Reliance. That is what knowledge graph helps you do. Knowledge graph can be contextual. What does that mean? So let's assume I just want to look at directors. I don't want to look at something else. Same thing can be applied here. Reliance Industries Limited. And now I will do contextual knowledge graph, which means that company network only, nothing else. And here, as you will see, expand. You can clearly see that this is the knowledge graph. How you can identify this is the company with the paid up capital given. Then you have a property, designation director, appointment date is this is the property, and who is the node? You have Nita Mukesh Ambani, Madhusudan Panda. Let's assume we want to look at Nital Rastiklal Meswani, and we expand this further. Now, because there is a knowledge graph available, I can expand it very quickly, and then I can create a knowledge representation. Here, the knowledge is limited to directorship. It is a contextual knowledge that you are getting. So now we are talking about knowledge representation. Jinal is asking, is it same as mind map? So mind map can be one of the knowledge graphs. I'm saying it is not only mind map. Understand why. You will understand once we look at it. This is not a mind map as such, but mind map can be one of the ways to represent the knowledge, but not the only way. Clear? So when you are asking, is it same as mind map? I will say it is subset in a way. Mind map is a subset of overall knowledge representation, but knowledge representation is not equal to mind map. I hope you are clear on that. Any other questions? There were a couple of questions on chat window. Can we use as document audit documentation? Yes, you can use. You will see examples as well. Noted. So no more questions on this. Great. So this is the knowledge representation that you have. Now, how this knowledge representation can be useful? Look, understand one thing. Knowledge, whatever you have, unless and until you ask the right set of questions, that knowledge is useless. Because if you can't ask the right set of questions to that knowledge, then the answers can't be achieved, right? You can't retrieve the answers. In this case, the knowledge that you want to process is that, do we have related party transactions? Given the data, do we have related party transaction? The question that you ask can be now answered using this knowledge base. That is the power of knowledge representation, that once you do it, it becomes easier for you to process certain information. Now to do this, what you are utilizing as a technology is irrelevant. You can use traditional database, you can use graph database, you can use AI/ML, you can use without AI/ML, doesn't matter. But output should be what you can get is what you want, right? End of the day, output matters. Whether you use technology XYZ, doesn't matter. The one that you are looking at is called knowledge graph using graph database. You are able to show the representation. You can even query the database in this manner, right? You can ask questions like, okay, when this person became director of this company, what was the revenue? Now, what is the revenue? All those questions you can ask. Is there any related party transaction? So this is one example of knowledge graph and how you can use it. Another question, however, comes, right? Because end of the day, knowledge can be in any format, and you want to create the format which is suitable for your use case. And for that purpose, typically, you need to use ready-made platforms which are available. Now, one of the questions that I can see in the chat window is Toffler paid solution. So the answer is that yes, Toffler is a paid solution for certain cases. But in most of the cases, if you want to see knowledge representation like this for Nifty 50 or some of the other companies, it is free. Only if you want to look at certain companies in deeper with more data, then it is a paid one. But it depends on what you want to do. It is a paid as well as a freemium solution that you can look at. Okay, coming back to the discussion that we were having, knowledge representation is something which is very, very difficult to standardize because you have different set of documentation, you have different set of images, it can be audio also. For example, you are having call center database. Call center database means that somebody is having the recording of all the calls that you have done. Similar to that, you have data set of people who are applying for a loan. Again, very different and diverse set of data sets you are looking at. Now, you cannot have a singular knowledge representation as a possibility to represent all this diverse set of data set. In this scenario, your knowledge representation that you do is the output, but intermediate steps, which are processing, creating that representation or storing that in the database, that is something you can standardize. Output, the way you want to process it, to store it, is completely variable. Okay. So there are tools available, which we will see now, which can allow you to process the knowledge, the way you can show that, right? Let's look at one such enterprise solution called StarNow. Now, this is the enterprise knowledge graph platform. Let's look at this. Again, it is premium, so you can start free, but then you need to pay for creating the knowledge graph, which are more and more complicated. Now, I will not, of course, download it for you, but you can then later on try. I will summarize it, what it does for you. You have multiple different applications. For example, you have data coming from multiple different apps. Everything gets accumulated in data lake or data warehouse, as we call it. From that data warehouse, based on the logics that you have built, this knowledge graph is created automatically, or you need to specify certain rules using the programming. You can do that, or you can create rules to classify the data to provide knowledge representation. There is a standard definition language that we call as a RDF. One of the languages, not only one, but one of the languages, which is RDF. I will give you a simple example of RDF. Right? These are the records which are there. You can have this in Excel or in database. Here you have title, name of the artist, country, company, label company, price of that CD or record, year in which it was released. Now the same thing, you can represent that as a knowledge definition language, where you are able to identify what is this about. You can see RDF about is this. Similar to that, you can identify that it is related to CD as an entity. So we are defining, or we are taking data from the parent entity called CD. Within that, you are having labels and record and everything, right? Now, this is what we call as a knowledge representation through data definition language or the definition language, which is RDF in this case. The moment you do this, it becomes machine readable as well as human readable, because you can then process this data and show it in the way human can look at it. I can even query this later. Ultimately, this is nothing but modified version of XML. And because of that, the definition that you see here is knowledge representation. Another example of knowledge representation can be XBRL file that you upload, right? Your XBRL written that you upload is in a way a structure. It is a semantic structure for representing certain knowledge, which is machine readable. Now, all these different definition language taxonomy that you store, you can provide that as an input to a tool like Stardoll. And then based on that, it can use AI/ML to process the data automatically, and then it can create a knowledge representation on its own. That is the power of your knowledge graph. Different knowledge graph you can create on the fly. One more example, you can integrate with multiple different systems, right? This is what I was talking about on a real-time basis. Because whenever we are talking about integration of different systems, it is very critical. Otherwise, your data is in silos. You have one system which cannot talk to another one. So the platforms like Stardoll, and again, I'm saying it is not the only platform. I'm giving you one example. You have multiple such platforms, but it is one of the leading platforms. So I'm giving you that as an example. When we look at such platforms, you are able to then connect all the other platforms because it has connectors available to these different platforms to collect the data, read the data. Now, majority of the time, you want to read the log related data, system logs which are there. So all these knowledge bases do have system logs reading capability as well. Along with that, you may want to also read transactional related data sets. You may want to read vendor master data so that you can combine everything together and create a knowledge graph. Any questions up to this point in time before we go ahead? Any doubts you have? You can think through about any questions you may have about knowledge graph in general so far. Okay, there is one question here. Difference between mining tools and this knowledge graph. Okay. Look, mining tool is about effectively, when you think about it, it is to analyze something, right? Analyze something. It may include mathematical functions, etc. Knowledge graph is the representation of data. Mining tool can work on top of knowledge graph as well. Mining tool typically contains query related tools, right? Query related, analytics related tools. They can also function on knowledge graph. Clear, Ratan Rathi? Any questions further on that? Second question that we have is Sarang is asking, in paid version, security aspects are covered. Definitely, I'm saying otherwise enterprise solution, you can't call any solution as an enterprise solution till the time security aspects are covered. So again, I'm saying any enterprise solution that you look at, security will be number one priority. Any other question? Okay, in chat window, do we have any questions? Yeah. How to use Stardog, some practical example. There is in fact entire 1 hour video available. Right now, I can't do is that it is a paid software as such. And right now I don't have the enterprise license to show you, right? But you can definitely look at the demo. If you want, you can independently connect with me on LinkedIn and I will share that demo, 1 hour demo with you. They will show you how they are doing it. Okay, Gurudat, any questions apart from that? But I will show you some other practical examples, not with Stardog, but later with some other practical examples. Any other questions you have? Okay, so let's continue. So this is, for example, is how logically in plain English you can think about the knowledge graph. So you have somebody who is having profession as X, date of birth is Y. And why this becomes very interesting is that the more complicated this gets, right? Ultimately, in our mind, interestingly, this is how we remember things, right? our neurons are connected in a manner which can allow you to recollect this set of representation. So I'll repeat one more time. This knowledge that we are talking about, whatever format we store that in, whatever way we represent it, whether it is in embeddings, we will see embeddings in some time. And I'm not jumping to very advanced example, because before that you need to have practical examples and some of the basic understanding. So we are first starting with the basics. If you have any questions right now, let me know, because once we go to some advanced example, these things are very useful. As I said, these are the building blocks for the next set of examples. Any doubt on this, anyone? We have seen example of even Reliance related directors. Now this example shows you how you can show the complete knowledge representation on ad hoc basis. This is ad hoc basis, right? I can have even something new. I can say this person met ND. Now his connections also are now indirectly connected. So I can ask how ND is related to somebody else. So I can get the answer that ND is related to Mr. Y and Mr. Y is related to Mr. Z. All those things I can identify. Even I can say that, okay, in this scenario, how ND is related to alien. So all this entire knowledge graph can be helpful in identifying that. So this screen, how will it come? This is one example. If you want, I have given this as an example, right? This knowledge graph is then created using query language. So now let's look at the query language and the largest graph database, right? Graph database, which is Neo4j. This is the database, which is a popular database. Again, not the only one, but you have for the SME, you can have free. Startups can use it for free to start with. Then you need to have a paid plan if you want to grow. Again, uncover hidden relationship. This is the knowledge graph representation that we have, where you can use Neo4j as a database. It is a knowledge representation in terms of database where you have a language called Cypher. So if you look at in these case studies, you will find all the different case studies which are there. And before we discuss, I'm sharing this link. There is one question as well. So we don't need one common field across DB. Correct. We don't require structured database. Absolutely correct, Jinal. Knowledge graph can be a data set of unstructured knowledge, right? It can have some data which is not linked to something else, but it can still traverse the entire route and answer the questions that you may have. Okay, so now before we move on to the next topic, I want you to look at one of these case studies. I'm sharing this URL with you all on the chat window. And we will discuss one case study in detail later, but I want you guys to select one of the case studies, and I'm giving you exactly 5 minutes. We have right now 5:46. I'm giving you time till 5 more minutes. Look at any one of these case studies and go through it. Okay. And we will discuss. The idea is that you understand how people are using it. If required, I will give you even more minutes because I can see it is already 47. So I will give you time till 5:55. You all have time till 5:55 to go through one of the case studies, and then we will discuss one case study in detail. And you can always filter on whatever you want. There are multiple case studies. If you are interested in finance, you can look at finance. If you are interested in healthcare, you can look at healthcare. So it completely depends on your interest, area of interest. And meanwhile, if you have any questions on whatever we have covered, you can put that on Q&A or chat. Okay, I hope you are going through the case studies. In case you have any questions on the particular case study also, you can put that as a Q&A. There is 5 more minutes that you can use to go through the complete case study. In case you are yet to go through that. In chat window, you can tell me in case you require more time. I'm not even sure if you have gone through that, you are still going through that. Okay. Continue guys, then you can continue reading. Okay, I'm assuming everyone is done reading. In fact, the time is also over. In case you are still going through, you may complete it later. But what I wanted to highlight is that you can definitely see somebody has mentioned in Q&A that they had gone through B flows, right? Now, given that this is also relevant case study for chartered accountants, you guys can see clearly that they created the unpaid invoices network. And by identifying and analyzing how this entire payment routing works, they were able to make it more efficient. You can analyze that better. And I will tell you how I use it, right? Because I'm VC investor also. So I have venture capital fund. So when I need to invest into startups, I need to create a knowledge graph of all the startups, including who are their founders, which was the startup before this that they had created, what is their education, who are the investors in the current startup, those investors which are the portfolio companies that they have. All these answers I need to have as an individual, and it becomes impossible. So while I have, let's say, paid tools like Traction with me, Traction will not show me that kind of a data, which means that I need to have that sort of data created for myself. Knowledge representation that I have in my mind, I need to have that sort of representation coming. Now, I can always search saying that, okay, if you are doing this manually, you can always search like this. Let's assume I want to look at Paytm. I can see Paytm, here it is. I can see the round-wise investor. Here it is. Current areas, which are the areas, exits of Paytm, rounds, funding round detail, who is the investor. Now, all this data point is something which is not useful for me because I cannot try to identify if tomorrow I want to know if one startup goes down, where all the ripple effect will go. If today somebody in the investor community is facing liquidity issue, where all the impact will go. Suddenly, the moment you are able to do this knowledge graph, all these answers you can get. And there is a tool available to do that kind of a query as well called Cypher. As I said, Neo4j has that tool for Cypher. It is a query language only specifically available for graph database as a representation. So graph database is one of the representation of knowledge, correct? And as you can see, any questions that you have, whether it is a COVID related, whether income tax related, whether we are talking about global recession related, how your raw material to finished goods relationship is there, how somebody who is not making payment, like larger company, let's say Adani, something happens to that, how the ripple effect will be there in the ecosystem. Everything can be identified very quickly the moment you represent the knowledge the way we are looking at it. Right? So this becomes very powerful tool. Another example is that the moment you create this network, there are certain advantages. Right? Now, people may ask certain questions that, okay, how do I know that this is what I need to consider? What are the parameters? The good part is that you can start with a knowledge which is unstructured completely and analyze that knowledge over the period of time and try to create a structure out of it. So sometimes you can start with unstructured journey and end up with the structured approach. Sometimes you can start with structured approach and you realize that it is not working out. So it is very versatile. It is not like you are screwed once you have started something. Knowledge graphs are typically very versatile. And because of that, it becomes very powerful tool. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in chat window. Anaga is asking question, what kind of data points one should have to apply the tool? You need to have anything which is showing some interconnection. So for example, let's take a very simple example. Let's take one example of this. In this Excel, I'm writing activity or task system involved, user name, time taken. Now, this is the data set, for example. It can be anything, but I'm just giving you one example, right? Now, let's assume this is activity task, invoice processing, system involved, ABC, username is XYZ, and time taken is 10 minutes. Let's assume. This is the data set that I have. Now, if I have enough data set, like after this invoice processing, I may have some other activity, some other user I may have, right? It can be anything, right? you can understand. Now, because of this, knowledge graph tool can automatically identify and interconnect these two things, right? Because you know that this system involved, I will just rename this as, let's say, MNO, right? So that the system name is unique. So for example, now in this case, if you have other user using the same system, doing some other task, those things are interconnected automatically. So knowledge graph automatically tries to identify this knowledge based on what you provide as a data. So data can be anything where you want to have some knowledge out of it. I will give you another example of COVID vaccination, right? When the COVID vaccinations were given and you wanted to track tracing also, COVID tracing. If somebody is meeting someone and this person is meeting whom, that entire graph, knowledge graph, is useful. It is a graph database, and the knowledge, the way you store it, is a representation. Knowledge graph in detail, if you think about it, can be so many things, but we are focusing on few of the top things rather than everything. Okay. Anaga, I hope that answers your question. Any other question, anyone? Okay. Let's look at another example of knowledge aggregation by using generative AI, because now we are coming to the topic of generative AI, and remaining about 40-45 minutes before we just open up for Q&A will be completely focused on generative AI, as you know, large language models and knowledge management, right? Now this becomes very critical because people today would like to search knowledge very quickly in the natural language. Another question becomes, how can you use AI/ML to curate the knowledge? Think about it, right? AI is reading the data. AI is understanding the data and telling that, okay, this looks critical. Can we use that or not? Can we use AI to create data definition or to create RDF XML? Can we use again AI/ML to directly create the knowledge graph? All those questions we are going to answer. Let's look at the ChatGPT. As you all know, you can see here, right? A very simple query which I had asked. This is using something that we call as a plugin. Without plugin also you can do it. I will tell you how. If you don't have a Plus account, you can still use it. But you can see I have given show me knowledge graph of Amitabh Bachchan's top movies, right? So here you can see that this is the knowledge graph AI has created based on that data. Now I can ask another question, for example. I can even edit this diagram, etc. But I can ask another question. I will say, show me knowledge graph of fintech payments. Now again, it can create in some other format I want, and it can represent that knowledge on the real-time basis. So while this is doing that, I will show you another example of how you can use AI to curate the knowledge. So it is generating the data. In fact, almost done. Image is received. Yeah, here it is, right? So online payments. This is kind of a mind map, right? In a simple way, it is a mind map that it has created. Somebody mentioned mind map. This is one of the ways in which you can represent the knowledge. So this is a simple mind map where it is not useful that much because it is, of course, we need to teach AI how we want it. So here I have given zero shot. Zero shot means without any example. In fact, I can give example and it can be much better in what it is doing, right? So I can say, I want to show this with the properties that you have, right? Let's say I say here, you are treating the nodes as properties. Can you this is a simple English language kind of a query that I'm doing. Let's see whether it is able to do that. And this is I'm doing for the first time for you, right? I'm saying there is nothing that is already there on a real-time basis. We are looking at the knowledge graph creation using AI. And again, as I said, everything can't be done by AI, but it can give you the right starting point. That is the idea. Can we upload a diagram to give example? Yes, you can do that. Interestingly, with Bing chart, you can even do that. Bing chart allows you to upload an image, okay? Which means that you can give it to Bing chart. Bing chart can understand the image, and then you can ask it to create based on that. That is also possible. Yeah, so there is some syntax issue, as you can see. There is some syntax issue, but doesn't matter. Let's say that you correct the syntax and you show that to the public, the way you can demonstrate that. So knowledge graph is created. The moment the knowledge graph is created, you can even edit the knowledge graph online. As you can see here, if there are some issues, I can check what is the syntax error. And this is what we call as a mermaid.js. This is the mermaid.js kind of a format. And here you can see what is the error. It is showing FP, MP, yeah. Correct. So let's take some simple diagram rather than this, because sequence, flow, ER, something like this. If you can see on the right hand side, everything is knowledge representation in a way, right? You are representing the knowledge. The way you want it, you can do it. Any complicated knowledge, you can show that in the way you want to demonstrate. And it can be pseudocode, it can be program, it can be user journey, whatever you want. It also has mind map as an option. And based on this, you can ask ChatGPT to do that. And there are questions. Okay, I have answered one of the questions. Let's look at this as an example. Now, I'm sure everyone knows about the Google alerts. Google alerts, let's assume you want to know about accounting. Let's say this is what you are interested into, and every day you want to look at accounting news, accounting standard related news, ICI related news. So what you can do, you can say Google alert. You can create Google alerts for your topic. Let's create a topic of your own choice. Accounting, ICI. You can see with ICI as a filter, we are getting fewer items. Let's take accounting for the time being. And you can create multiple alerts, or you can create with or ICI, which means that it will include this or this. Otherwise, it will include and. Now you have certain data points with you. I will create an alert delivered to RSS feed. I can even filter it out. Region I want is, let's say, India only. I don't want US. Yeah, so I've selected India. Create alert. Now you can see RSS feed is ready. Now in this case, interestingly, you don't have any news with the one that we have created. So I can try to modify, remove the ICI. Yeah. Because we are filtering in India, which means that it will include only in India. Hopefully now we will get something. Correct, we found it. Now I can use tools like this. Now this tool I have created myself. What it does, right? It goes automatically to all the news articles which are mentioned here, right? So all these news articles that you can see, which are coming as an alert, Google alert. Now this tool will go through that, and we will wait for maybe a couple of minutes, and it will analyze it one by one. This tool will analyze this one by one, and then it will generate the summary. Now this becomes AI generated summary for the links that you are receiving, latest updates that you are receiving. And now you can use that to create knowledge graph. You can even analyze that further to create knowledge graph, because you don't want to create knowledge graph on the static data. You want to create knowledge graph on the dynamic data. If you create on the static data, which means that it is constant, no, it is not reality. You are changing data every day, every maybe second, right? And you want to make sure the knowledge graph is getting updated maybe on the real-time basis. So when the alert comes, you have the architecture. Of course, you need to have the proper data pipelines. You get the alert, you process that using AI. Right now, this AI is processing this entire feed that you have. So every news article is getting read, analyzed, and then the summary is prepared. Not only the summary, but also the implication of that, impact of that news. What is the impact of that news? So while this is getting generated for accounting, let's look at something which is already generated, right? This is for the AI, generative AI. The alert that I have created is for generative AI, artificial intelligence. This is the output that you will get. Category, news headlines, news summary, potential impact and implication. Like this, you have for all the news articles which are there. Now, this becomes input rather than something which is very difficult. This you can even read yourself, or you can give this back to AI and ask AI to create knowledge graph. This is much more manageable data. So sometimes you need to have multiple steps in between before you can get to the final output. Let's see if this is generated. No, it is still working on that. Typically, it takes a couple of minutes to process all the data. It uses GPT-4, which is the most powerful model available, GPT 4.0, and it analyzes all the information available on that news website. Okay, so any questions, anyone? While this is getting processed, you have any doubts, any queries? Let me know. And this is the reason generative AI will change the way people work, right? The way we look at the things, the way we look at the security also, because cyber security is getting changed. You are looking at the billions and billions of data points available on internet with generative AI and representing that as a knowledge graph. Just imagine the way you can process, the quantity that you can process is one thing, but the connections that you can make, which was not possible earlier, but now it is possible. Any doubts, any questions, anyone so far? Question is by Jinal, can we drill down from the summary, go to the source? Yes, you can. You can always do that. As I said, it just depends on what kind of data you have and what kind of system you use. It can be done. Any other questions, anyone? Okay, so, Ratan Rathi, I can see only few names. I request everyone to ask some questions if you have, because look, if you ask more questions, you learn more. It is as simple as that. And you can always ask your relevant question. I'm okay to answer a specific question. Why? Because sometimes in doing so, people learn 5 more things. Can we put settings such that we continue to get micro level data on particular topic on constant basis? This exactly is what I'm talking about, right? Google Alert gives you updates on a real-time basis. If you remember the Google Update setting that we had, now this is done. You can see accounting. This is the news summary. Delhi High Court has asked central government potential impact. Again, all these different things, right? You can see from ICAI, from everywhere. And the way we are building this is on a real-time basis. We don't need to worry. It is a real-time basis data that we are getting. So if you are looking at this data, and I'm sure you know about cron jobs and everything. So this, I'm doing this manually. You can automate this further. You can say that I want to run after every 10 minutes or after every news. Once I get the new news, I want to process that new news. You can do that. I will show you that Google Alerts again. You can see here Google Alerts. If you look at the settings, yes, you can see sources automatic, only the best result and delivered to RSS feed, which means that whenever it happens, it will come to you automatically. And how often as it happens? It is a real-time basis. Whenever it happens, you will get. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Ratan. Sarang is asking, is there any book? Sarang, there are so many different things. In fact, you have open knowledge available on OpenAI as well. The thing is that if you really want to learn, right, there are also programs available which allow you to do that. So I will not go directly there into that side, but Sarang, there are programs or even free resources available which just tells you how to use OpenAI. Now, how to apply in accounting, etc. That is where people like you and me come into picture, because we know domain very well. Any technology is just a tool. If you are expert in one domain and you know how to use certain tools, not how to program it, then you can utilize it very well, like what I can do today, right? Gurudat, I have created that application. This is something which is a custom development. Using OpenAI APIs, I have developed this on my own. By the way, this is also generated using OpenAI itself. I told OpenAI, this is what I want to generate, and OpenAI created the code. I have hosted that code on Replit. That's it. It is a custom developed software. But why do I need to use that? Because let's assume I have my own set of startups, my portfolio companies. I have invested into, let's say, 50 companies. It becomes virtually impossible for me to every day look at the news articles related to not only that company, but whatever areas are there which are impacting my portfolio companies. And you can appreciate now that if I have automated, then only I can identify overall impact. I can get summary at the end of the day saying that today all the portfolio companies are impacted by XYZ news articles. It becomes very simple for me. And I can tell my portfolio companies immediately, look, this has come, be aware about that. This new rule and regulation has come, immediately take opportunity and be first to do something new. The moment you are able to track and trace online real time, you are able to get very quickly opportunities that you are able to grab, right? That opportunities you are able to grab on a real time basis. That is the most powerful thing you can have. Now, our portfolio companies, 14 portfolio companies, right? Now, in one of them, we have regulated by RBI. Immediately, whatever happens on RBI website, we can apply that. Right? So all these examples are live examples. We need to apply knowledge graph. We need to apply this summary using AI because it is humanly impossible to do so. Clear? Any other questions? Gurudat, I have answered your question. Sarang, I have answered your question as well. Parth, I think the recording is there, so maybe it is available. I am not the right person to answer that. Chaitanya is asking, do we require any formal education through courses? Look, to use OpenAI, no. To become expert in that, I will say yes, because sometimes you need to go through structured knowledge, which means that, like what I'm giving you, right? Somebody who is practitioner, who has used it, failed 10 times and now knows how not to fail. Those are the right ways in which you can learn that, right? And then you become also expert in that field, in your own field, with the generative AI, correct? So I would say to start, you don't require any training. You can go through freely available resources. There are enough and more. But then if you want to really become expert in your field, vis-a-vis OpenAI or by using OpenAI, you really require somebody who knows that in your field. Just Guru, that you can try that. In fact, it works amazingly well. I have developed using OpenAI. I have developed more than 22 odd websites or tools, not even websites, tools, which are very useful for my own use cases, right? So I have created multiple tools which are useful. And I would recommend you to create your own tool because it depends on how you want to utilize it. Then we have Rekha asking question. Can we make knowledge graph for portfolio company to track profitability? Definitely you can. As I said, right, you can definitely do that. But if you want to track profitability, that knowledge should come from somewhere. Now it is possible that you have some APIs and you can get the data, but majority of the time, private companies will not have publicly available data. They are sending it through some MIS, some email. So that is currently manual process even for us. We get data on email. Even if we automate, how to read that knowledge and associate that knowledge is very difficult. So while you can do that, it is not feasible enough, at least in the private company case. I hope that is clear to you, Rekha. How about using a screener for the same? For public company, you can use the screeners, etc. For private company, it becomes difficult. Let's assume even if you look at database like Traction. Now, for private company, Traction has some data set available from ROC. They download ROC data, they process ROC data, and then they give it to you. Whether you use this tool or some screener, the only difference is that you are processing the data from the different channel. The question is, or difficulty is not that. Difficulty is that how will you utilize it vis-a-vis what knowledge representation that you require. It is possible that you just require sales, or you require product-wise sales, or you require channel-wise sales. It depends on that. If you just require sales, it might be easy. But in your knowledge graph, if you have created where you require product mix, channel mix, it is difficult. It is not easy. Any other question? We have Kevin asking how much reliance can be placed on data generated through AI. Data generated through AI is different vis-a-vis data curated by AI. Now let me differentiate between these two. If you generate data with AI, it can hallucinate. What does that mean? It means that it can give you wrong answer. But in this case, what I have given, this AI generated summary that you saw earlier, right? This is not AI generated directly. It is something which is AI using. There is a concrete data, real data, which is given to AI, and AI is confined to using only that data. Then it will not hallucinate. I hope the difference is very clear. If I tell AI to generate something, it can hallucinate because it may or may not know about it. But now I'm saying, look, this is the data. I want you to summarize it. Then it will not hallucinate because you have the data available with you. At least up to that point, good AI models like GPT-4, it gives you, I can say 99.999% accuracy in giving the summary. It may not generate the new text completely new without any reference, but it can give you amazing summary the moment you have data available. Okay. I hope that gives you your answer, Kevin. You should never ever trust on AI blindly for sure. I'm the last person to tell you that you need to trust blindly. But you can try yourself and then see, yes, it is making sense. It is giving you data from that. So that I have tested. The moment you give the data, then it is not going to hallucinate. CA Ratan asking, it shall be useful to create graph data well as compliances. Yes, it can be. For example, this Personal Data Protection, Digital Personal Data Protection Act, which has come, DPDP Act, it is amazingly useful for that. So, for example, I can show you on a live basis how you can create knowledge base out of it. Let's assume I'm creating new. I will just give me a second. I will stop sharing and reshare because I need to change it for input data. Okay, hopefully you can see it now. What I can do, I can simply upload that Data Protection Act. I think it's in desktop. Yeah, Digital Personal Data Protection Act. I can give this file to AI and I can simply say using page 4, generate the summary in the following format. Chapter name, illustration, implication. Now look, I have not done anything. I have not told AI how to extract data from PDF. I have not told AI how to analyze the text. But if I am very clear in my instructions, what kind of output I want, now AI can process. You can see when the work, it is creating a program on its own. It is now creating a program to read the PDF file. You can see based on the extracted text, this is the chapter name, illustration. Done, right? This is what it is able to do it for you. So definitely your question is very useful because you can create this as well as you can ask right questions to it, and AI can process the data, and this will be exactly what is there. It will not hallucinate. It will bring the exact data which is there in the PDF file, and you can verify that also, right? Implication is also given. I want this in tabular format. I want this in tabular format. There you go. It will generate this in tabular format. Same thing. So this is how you can do it. And this is how you can even automate it further. If I'm doing this manually versus automated, that's the main difference. And remember one thing for sure, earlier, if I just ask, create a summary of data protection or GDPR, it can hallucinate because it does not have the exact context. Here, I'm giving it the context of the act and telling it to create this in a form of format that I want. It is a tabular format, right? Any other questions, anyone? Correct, Sunil. So the data cutoff is there, but we don't care because we are not asking it to generate on its own. We are telling it, look at this, read through this, and you generate something after that. Definitely. So it will not be the dated data. This is the latest information that we have. And this can be anything. I can even now say to use this with some other context. So now I can ask, now look at the difference, right? If I ask that how does this compare against GDPR? Now I'm going into the territory where I can't trust the output. Why? Because while I have given one context, the other context is not available, which means that the data might be dated. GDPR may have come up with something new, which is not considered. I cannot trust this answer now. Which answer I can trust and which answer I can't, you should be very clear. I can't trust this answer because I have not given the reference of GDPR, which I can trust. Everyone clear? I'm assuming you are clear with the example. When I can trust AI, when I cannot trust the AI. CA, Ronak is asking, can it generate? No, I'm saying it can or it may or may not be. Why? Because it can hallucinate. To give you a simple answer, LLMs are nothing but fancy next word prediction machine. In fact, you can even see that in practice, what is the probability of the next word? So if I ask what you are exactly asking me, right? If I ask that, let's assume I ask that question about generating some reference, right? Let me give it to you as a live example. Okay. So here, as you can see in the playground, I have chat version, GPT 3.5 Turbo, etc. And if I change this to completion, let's see if you can get your answer immediately after that. Spectrum. There is a company which is facing transfer pricing related issue when they are importing gym equipment. Can you share some case study references for the same in Indian text? Now, let's generate the output and see what happens, right? You can see some references are generated. But along with that, you can see the colors also, which means that it is highly likely, I will repeat, it is highly likely that wherever it is red color, you can see why reason also. I can put my mouse, and by putting my mouse, it can show you percentage probability for that word, right? And it is highly likely that this red color thing is completely hallucinated. That's why it may or may not be accurate. And that is something you should know. But if I had the knowledge repository of all the case studies, and then I ask AI to filter from that and give me the answer, then I can trust it. Okay. I hope now you are very clear. Just Guru, that you can upload the video and generate the summary. That also you can do. In fact, I'm using that because I'm also director of fintech program in SP Jain. I upload the videos which are there, and I can generate the summary using that. That is possible. And you can see the summary. I will show it to you if you are interested. This is how it may look like, right? So summary, just a second, let me open that page. Yeah, found it. You can see, right? Study notes using advanced ChatGPT generative AI tools for research. This is AI generated, by the way. This completely what you are looking at is AI generated, but based on the similar session that I had for someone else, right? This is entire thing is 5-page summary is AI generated. So it gives you your answer as well. It can be done. Then we have a question from Sunil. I have used ChatGPT to generate detailed work plan. Okay. Yeah, it can do. But as I said, remember, it can give you amazingly beautiful, literal. I would not use the word BS, but it is something which is completely wrong. Some junk word it can give you, but it can be beautifully presented, right? So don't trust the data until unless you are giving the context. And there are ways in which you can give the context. We will see how. Can you suggest a platform we can learn how to use ChatGPT efficiently? ChatGPT itself has multiple different things that you can use. Along with that, you can Google it easily, but there are free tools available like Deep Learning AI. You have a free course available there. Even there is a paid course available, which I take, but that is a separate thing. I'm not here to market myself, but I'm saying there are courses that we do take. Feel free to do your own research. Whatever you believe is right one for you, you can decide. Then we have last question from Amol. What is the source of information knowledge which AI is using? Complete entire internet. That is how it is. In fact, there is a website which tells you which model is using which set of data. What to use AI for finance. Basically depends on what do you want to use it for, right? So for example, generative AI can be used for multiple different things. So one thing can be finchat.io. Now this is something which you can use for a specific use case. Now this use case is to ask questions about certain companies. Let's say I want to search for a company, Reliance. Let it load. It's still loading. Yeah. Reliance Industries Limited. Now I can ask specific questions. What are the key positives and negatives for Reliance or for this company? I can simply write what are the key positives and negatives. Let's see what happens. And while I will look at the other questions. Yeah, you can see positives, negatives, everything, right? You will see all those things. Now, this is something which you can see that it has not correctly put because I have just asked it on a random basis. I need to ask more specifically. Companies, I need to go to companies, Reliance Industries Limited. Okay. Let's ask one question and then ask more questions on that. So while it is generating, let's look at other questions. Yeah, so this is Reliance, this is real data, by the way. And this is accurate. Why? Because it is taking it from the stock exchanges. This is real-time data whenever available, and it will also look at news articles and everything. So if I were to ask, why do you think Reliance price is going up? It can consider the recent news articles and give you the answer. So those things are possible. This is one of the examples, right? I can use the same thing for analyzing historical data of any bond that I have, debentures that I have. I can ask any questions on that as well. Any other question, anyone? I hope this is clear to everyone. Okay, let's look at one last question is when we randomly ask question to AI, do we get the source of information? While again, as I'm saying, it can give you source of information if you ask. For example, I asked it to give me source of information. It gave me, but if I Google it, we will see whether it is really what it is and it is correct or not, right? So I can tell you some of the things might not be accurate because it is going to hallucinate. AI, unless until you provide the context which is actual and then you ask question, it will be much more accurate. Otherwise, it is going to be, you can see, right? I'm not able to find that case study. Not possible. So it is giving you hallucinated answers. Are you clear? Any other questions? Okay, great. Now comes enterprise AI. Now, the major concern that people have is that if I share my data, then I have privacy concerns. Can I create a system which can allow me to digest data and create entire database or knowledge base which I can use to answer the question? Now, let's consider that as an example. So I have created a bot which uses the data available on a couple of websites. One is startupindia.gov.in. Another one is MSME and few more custom data sets that I have provided. Based on that, it will allow me to answer the question only using the data set that I have generated or provided. This is the website that I have created through Association for Emerging Technologies, which is not-for-profit company created. You can see msmemitra.org. If you have questions on MSME or startup, it can answer that using the website. So let's look at a question. I may have a question on let me start afresh so that there is no history available. This is better because it will not have any history. Okay, let's ask a question of what are some of the schemes. It is already there, so I'm clicking on that. So I can collect email or I can remove this. Okay. Can you provide top schemes with more details? Now, all this data point is real data point, right? And it is going to only answer from that. Otherwise, it will tell you that it does not know. So if I ask this question, for example, what is Sholay? Tell me story. Now this is unrelated. So it will tell you that it is not part of the knowledge base that you have created. And this is the custom knowledge. This is running on the custom knowledge base that I have created. And this can be your own enterprise knowledge base. Not only that, it can allow you to create even the e-commerce experience on top of this. Why? I can create the entire knowledge base with product and the current price of the product. It can search automatically from that. How it can do that, it is beyond the scope of our discussion right now because it is a mathematical model. And while I have that with me, it is not going to be useful because many of you will have zero clue of what are these numbers. But it does that mathematically. It gives you the accurate answer and it gives you the most closest accurate answer, right? That is what it tries to achieve. And because in this case, it has zero knowledge about Sholay, it will tell you that I have zero knowledge about this topic. You can only ask whatever is within my knowledge base, right? Okay, I can see there are a few questions. Let's look at those questions. How to use this data for internal audit of financial transaction. Again, your financial database that you have becomes your knowledge base. And then you can use generative AI to do the embedding. That embedding is a concept separate topic altogether, but you can use embeddings to process that knowledge, then search using generative AI, like whatever I have done. You can ask certain question and it can try to analyze the data and give you the answer. In fact, there are solutions available which can allow you to do that directly within the Excel as well. You can do that in Excel. If you are Microsoft enterprise user, Microsoft has $30 per user per month plan, which allows you to do that in Excel. You can ask generative AI related questions in Excel, and using the Excel data, it will give you the answer. That is live. Okay. Any other question? Anga is clear with that. Good. We have a chat window, a couple of questions, but how to answer questions to the top management? This is the presentation prepared from AI. Look, when you are saying how to answer, you are just using the available data, and then whatever is generated, you still need to explain it to your management, right? You are not replacing human. You are replacing the tedious task of creating something. You are still responsible for the presentation that you are creating. Today, you can use AI even to create presentation, by the way. There are multiple tools available which you can use to create the presentation. In fact, I can show you the advanced version of the presentation creator, which can simply allow you to ask few simple points about what you want to achieve, and it can generate amazingly beautiful presentation for you. But it does not mean that you will not present it to your management. You should be subject matter expert and able to explain to the management what is that you are trying to achieve. AI can reduce your work. Otherwise, it can replace you. So don't do that. If you are planning on that, then it will be a future, in fact, where it can replace you as well, which you don't want. You want to become irreplaceable. Okay. So Hardik, I hope that is clear to you. Then Ronak is asking, can ChatGPT be installed entirely on premises? Interestingly, answer is yes and no. While ChatGPT model, which is GPT 3.5 or 4, cannot be directly installed on premises, you can use private cloud for that. Private cloud means that you have the enterprise grade security, dedicated server, etc., but it is not in your premises, right? It is a private cloud, as we call it. So today you can use Azure OpenAI service and you can get it done. So you have models available. I will just show it to you. You have Azure OpenAI pricing. Now this is secure version, right? With the model which is hosted properly and it is not, your data is never used for any training purpose. This is what it is. You can see ChatGPT, GPT-4, 8K context, prompt rupees 4.95 rupee per 1,000 token. Completion is 10 rupee per 1,000 token. Token is effectively 750 words equal to 1,000 tokens. That is what you can remember. So that is what it is. If you put personal data on AI to get useful process done, whether this, so as I said, Ratan, that if you use ChatGPT, then they can use that data to train and then it may become public in future. Because of that, it is advisable to use APIs, which they mention themselves that they are not using it to generate anything. Right? Let's look at this. You can see on this platform allows you to use APIs, and this data is not used for any training purpose. Okay. Even the Azure APIs, which I mentioned, it is the enterprise grade APIs, not used for any training purpose. AI, Ketan is asking, AI is providing data from web. So to what extent we should rely on integrity of data? As I said, that web data is fine, but when it is generating the data, and as we saw that earlier, it is generating with the probability, which means that you cannot trust any data which is generated without context by AI. I will repeat one more time. You should never ever trust any data which comes generated using AI rather than without any context, because it can hallucinate a lot. Better models are available, like GPT-4 hallucinates a lot lesser than this one. So let me do the same thing with GPT-4. Right? Same question. If I ask GPT-4, you will see the difference completely immediately. So let's look at this. Can you see that it is the first of all telling you that it is not able to answer, etc. It is giving some context, some key principle, etc. Let it get over. I will say, I mean some historical examples and references that I can use. And is okay. So now it has generated the answer. I'm still forcing it to generate some references. It's GPT-4. So first of all, it is trying to avoid that. And let's see if I force it further, what happens. Now I'm forcing it. You can see, right? It is trying to avoid that because now this new model is trained in a way that it will try to avoid things which will cause hallucination, right? While GPT-3, you saw immediately it gave you the answer. So it gives you that real-time example. Any other question? Okay, done. So look, this session can continue for hours and hours, right? I'm saying that there are so many things that we can discuss, but with the 10 minutes remaining, I would recommend you to ask more questions related to what you want to achieve. So again, Amol is asking, Azure has authority to run OpenAI? Not really, but the thing is that GPT 3.5 and 4 models, only they have it. They are not open source model. Today, you can also have open source model. By the way, on Hugging Face, you can see list of open source model, right? Now this is the open source model that you can have, which you can deploy on your own server. It can be your AWS server or your even local computer for that matter. So this is something which is available, right? You can always download and install, for example, Bloom, Starcoder. All these models are available. Today, the best performing model as such is Falcon 40B. In fact, a new model also has come, Llama 2, which is also functioning very well. And you can also try to create a decentralized ecosystem, like blockchain-based infrastructure, where you have tools like Petals.dev, right? Now, this tool allows you to use on a decentralized basis this open source model. Again, you can download this and run it on your own device if you want, but you require very powerful GPU. So here, if you look at on a decentralized level, now this is the open source model. So if I use Llama 2 chat model, let's very quickly look at the output. Can you generate a funny poem on accounting? Now, as you will see, it will use the processing power which is distributed across the globe. Like people like you and me have given few kilobytes or megabytes of processing power, and using this, you can see the speed is very slow, 1.3 tokens, 1.4 tokens, because it is using the distributed computing and decentralized environment. And now if I do the same thing with ChatGPT, the output will be much, much faster. Look, because they are using much more powerful tool, the output is much, much faster. Okay, I hope that answers your question as well. Anagha is asking, can you narrate the challenges that CA should be aware of? Challenge in which area? It is a very generic question. I'm not too sure. Ronak is asking, are there any tool to detect AI generated content? Look, there is, to answer your question, Ronak, while there are many tools to detect AI generated content, there is no reliable tool to detect AI generated content. In fact, what I have done is that I have tried to use AI to detect AI in my own way. How? Let's assume students are going to cheat. We know that students can cheat. Now, what I have created is this one. I will just open that again. I will open that for you very quickly. Yeah. Sharing my screen again. Look, so this exam template that I have created, automatically the AI, which I have added, can analyze the way student is writing it, right? So if I write logically, like I'm typing it, this is the test exam. Look, if I'm writing it properly, you will be able to understand that if I copy paste, then large amount of text will be generated immediately. And I am automatically doing track changes, which means that it will record everything with the timestamp. Whatever I am typing, it will record. And AI then analyzes this log of recording to identify whether it looks like a person has copy pasted from somewhere or written it using AI. If it has done so, it will catch because the timestamp will not match. If I'm humanly typing it, it is impossible to identify, right? So this is again a custom software. Okay. Then challenges in areas of audit. Yes, there are multiple challenges, definitely. For example, when we are talking about using generative AI, so the audit standards that you have, right? Auditing standards. So today, when you're applying auditing standards, you need to, first of all, create this knowledge base before you can apply generative AI, because your industry will have certain specific issues. Again, your internal knowledge that you have, right? For example, you are one of the big fours. Now, this one of the big fours will have this clarity on what exactly they have done internally in the past in the similar scenario. Now, that becomes their knowledge base. Now, this is something which is not available on the industry wise. And in fact, if you ask me, ICAI should, in fact, do this sort of curation of these examples, best practices, which can become knowledge base for all the chartered accountants. Why only Big Fours can enjoy this privilege of using AI at a scale? If institute also decides in future to create and curate these best practices, this can be the AI useful for everyone, including Big Four. Why not? And this is the change that you can bring, right? Definitely. Not generate, curate the knowledge, and then use that to train AI and use that AI to get the precedence, which will not hallucinate. Okay. I hope, Amol, you are clear now. Can we use AWS? Well, yes, answer is correct. Yes, you can do that. Now, in the last 3 minutes, I'm just going to look at the questions which are there and I will answer. No more new question I can handle. But so Amol, again, to answer a question, there is a knowledge representation, as I said, using the neural network. It just runs the neural network and gives you the most probable next word. And that is what people are today arguing philosophically. Are we also machines which are predicting next word? Maybe we are, who knows? How does AI detect the generated? Again, AI, so there is a standard. Those who are interested in that, there is in fact a standard getting created, C2PA. There is a standard called C2PA.org. Jinal, you can go through that standard and you will understand how people can do that. Okay. In fact, it is much more easier to identify than the AI generated text, because you can put pixel signature, you can put steganography, as you call it. Is someone sharing information with us? Can we check? Again, Amol, I have answered this question, so I'm marking that as finished. Please clarify whether data. Yes, it becomes public if you're using free tool. It becomes public, your privacy is 0. Okay, great. So we are on time. Thank you everyone for your time, and hopefully you guys have got enough and more knowledge. I request ICI to now complete the session. Over to you guys.
Thank you, sir. I must say that being a person who has been a CA, like who is a CA and also been running an AI startup, I can tell you the value that you've given us in last like 2 hours overall. The way you structured the whole session, it's really interesting. We have been doing these things at our office, right? But to train it to someone who is not from an AI domain in such a structured way, I'm sure all the participants would have loved the way and they would have learned a lot, right? So at the first, I must convey heartful thanks to you for taking out your time. I would request CA Shivani to give a vote of thanks to sir and conclude the session, please.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Thank you, Hardik. Okay, so Thank you, sir. I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Vikram, sir, for the enlightening session on the topic of knowledge of management using generating AI, ChatGPT, and other AI generating tools. His insightful presenting during the Zoom webinar has broadened up the knowledge. And I also like to gratitude to all the participants who joined this webinar and to actively participating in the webinar, asking the questions and gaining the knowledge over this. And in conclusion, we thank you to Dr. Vikram sir for sharing his knowledge, time, and expertise with us today. We took forward to implement a valuable, insightful, and let's continue to explore a ever evolving landscape of AI generating and use in the work to increase the efficiency. And this is all. Thank you for everyone for
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
listening me out.
Thank you, Shivani. So with this, we are at the end of the session.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, again, and thank you to all the people who have joined for today. We look forward to see you in the next session as well. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.